My name is Pejì Banek, and I was born in Odessa, Texas, which is in West Texas. But I primarily grew up in the San Francisco area in California. And my parents are born in Texas as well. My father is a certified public accountant, a CPA, and he's also a consultant. And my mother is a registered nurse. And our family is primarily from Texas. My family's been in the United States since before the Revolutionary War. And our ancestry is English, Scottish, German, and Norwegian. All right, my father has his own consulting business through accounting, and he has his bachelor's degree. He graduated from the University of Texas at Austin, summa cum laude, which means that's the top in the business school, the highest grade point average. My mother has her degree as a nurse, registered nurse, and she's no longer working. She's retired now, but she worked her entire life as a nurse. My parents growing up were not religious at all, but they both grew up in a house where the background was Baptist. We're here from Texas. So, but we never went to church as a child. The only people that took me to church was my mother's mother, my grandmother. My parents did not go to church. They didn't practice a religion, though they grew up in the Baptist church. And my grandmother on my mom's side took me to church, but that was pretty much it. I was never really taken to church or had any background, but I did go to church on my own as a teenager. But then when I turned 16, I decided to quit going. No, in my mind, what they were talking about, it didn't make sense to me. They kept talking about Jesus, and they never talked about God. And I always, in my childlike mind, as a child, I thought, well, that's sad. They never talk about God. They always talk about Jesus. And they talked about how it's important not to be a hypocrite. And then I would see my friends and other people go and doing things. And then on the weekend, they would go to church. And I just thought they were being hypocrites and they weren't being real. And I didn't want to be that way. And I was confused by the religion. There weren't any real answers. So I decided to stop going to church. And then I started looking in other places. Odessa, Texas, where I'm from, was settled by Russian immigrants. And when they got there, they said, well, we'll name it Odessa. And it was named after the city in Russia. But primarily in Odessa, this is just what we call oil country. And this is where George Bush is from. It's Midland, Odessa. So we mainly have oil out there. It's the desert. Everybody's 90% Baptist. Everybody's Baptist. And then the small part are Catholic. And this is like the Mexican-American community. They're the Catholics. And everybody else is Baptist. And there's some Pentecostal and some Jehovah Witness, but that's pretty much it. You know, you would think that, but, you know, as the generations pass, people lose their religion. That happens here even with Muslim immigrants. Muslim immigrants come here and they don't teach their children the religion and they're not strong about it. And these kids, they lose their religion and then their next generation, they're not Muslim. I've met several Americans who say, oh, my grandfather was a Muslim. Oh, and he used to talk to me or he'd say, Salam alaikum. And that's all they know because their parents didn't teach them Islam and they don't teach their kids Islam. So now they've lost Islam here in America. I'm sorry, I can't say anything. I don't know. No, I grew up as a Baptist, so I never met any Orthodox anybody, you know, until I lived in Chicago and there was an Greek Orthodox church.
Yeah, for example, I asked the question like this, the Catholics and Baptists, what's the difference, I guess?
Oh, well, that's huge. That's what you call the Protestant and the Catholic. There's the Catholics and Protestants. Protestants are the Baptist, Methodist, Presbyterian. So they just don't follow the Catholic Church. They don't follow the Pope or anything like that. So they're Baptists belong on the Protestant side of Christianity.
What's the difference in belief?
Again, I'm not too sure, but they don't hold the same rituals. I think that's pretty much it. And they don't consider the Pope as in their authority figure.
Yeah. Okay.
That's all I know. I don't know a lot.
Well, it's okay. Just I wonder really personally.
Yeah, Protestants don't follow the Pope and whatever they say. So
Protestant, what would they do?
they don't follow the Pope. Catholics, the Pope is their, main person. Well, I don't remember where I went as a little child, but I grew up partially in California and like I said, the Bay Area, San Francisco. And then we moved back. My mom moved us back to Odessa. And I went to Sam Houston Elementary. And then I went to Hood Junior High. And then I went to Permian High School. And Permian High School is a very famous high school here in America. And especially in Texas, they're known for the football. There was a movie called Friday Night Lights that was made about my high school. And also a television series, Friday Night Lights. And actually the time that all that was going on, that's when I went to that high school. But it's primarily all about football. That's all that matters in Odessa.
Did you play football?
No. Girls don't play football, but I was in the band.
Was you
No, the band, the marching band, the music, and I played drums. Well, my parents divorced when I was young, so that was very hurtful. And that's, a sad story. And then moving away from San Francisco to Odessa, that was a big culture shock because in the Bay Area, you have the redwood trees, it's beautiful, the ocean, and then you go to Odessa and it's all desert and there's nothing. And it's not the pretty desert, like Arizona's the pretty desert, but Odessa is not the pretty desert. It's the Sonoran and it's flat and nothing, but it has beautiful skies. So it was sad when I had to move back to Odessa. We just have, our values aren't any less, but our values are different, I think. And that when my parents divorced, this was the early 70s. And at this time, women were able to work in the workplace and they could support themselves. And so if things weren't going right, they didn't have to stay in a bad marriage. Also, what I think is in the old days, so to speak, when you had a child or a woman became pregnant, it was demanded that they have to be married, So if people are doing what they're not supposed to be doing and the woman gets pregnant, then the families say, no, you must get married. And the thing is that maybe these two people don't really love each other. They were just dating and things happen. So then they enter into a marriage, but the real love's not there. So after a few years, it's not working and they decide to leave each other. I think these things have always been going on. It's just in the past, you were forced to get married, and here we call them shotgun weddings, meaning the dad of the woman who got pregnant comes with a shotgun and tells that boy, you better marry my daughter, But now it seems it's more socially acceptable to have a child out of wedlock. But so that's most my own feeling is people are getting married because the woman got pregnant. And like I said, the real love wasn't there. And then the woman can work by herself and it's easy. And why do I have to stay in a bad relationship? And it's socially acceptable. So that's why people started getting divorces more then. Oh yeah. I have a college degree. I graduated from the University of Texas at the Permian Basin, which is in Odessa. And I have a degree in mass communications and a minor in speech, public speaking. And I worked in radio and television for like 10 years. But then I decided I wanted to move to Chicago. And it's hard and here in the United States if you're in radio and television working in a small market, to go to a major top 5 market and you don't know anybody, it's difficult to get a job. And I just kind of fell out of it. And I did little projects here and there, but never as strong as I was before. And I also have a certification in teaching with the state of Texas, and that's what I'm doing now. Well, I wasn't like an A student at all. I was a C student, but I thought I was doing really good because I never picked up a book or read a book, and I felt like to get a C, that's really good. But I think the main issue is because my parents were divorced and my mom worked very hard to support us, and it was hard for her to keep track of me and make sure, are you doing your homework? Are you doing what you're supposed to do? And because of that, I know nobody's watching me, so I'm going to goof around. So, but when I got into college, I got serious, and then I became a much better student, because then to me, that's when it really counted, Well, I was, I don't want to say the word, it's a bad word, it's obnoxious. I was very loud and dramatic and boisterous because I wanted attention. Basically, I wasn't getting attention at home, and I wanted friends, and I was always the joking person, always making jokes in class, and just because I wanted attention. So I probably bothered them a lot with that. But I had good intentions, so. I was just saying, I know my teachers thought I was pretty obnoxious because I was loud and always disruptive and making jokes, things like this. But when I got into college, I became more serious. But I tried to channel that energy in a more positive direction with being in radio and television, because it's a little bit of acting and stuff like that. So, and then I was more appreciated then. My working, or what I did? Well, I started out in radio as a disc jockey, and I did that for about 10 years at different radio stations in West Texas. I worked in Odessa and Lubbock, and I worked a little bit here in the Dallas area. And I also worked in television, and I did some production work, directing, producing. And I started out on the teleprompter because in the old days, that's where you would start out with. And but I built my way up to camera, and then starting to do directing and some sound engineering and things like that. The thing is, I didn't want to stay in Odessa anymore. This is a very small town, 100,000 people, and I wanted to get out. So a friend of mine lived in Chicago, so then I moved to Chicago, and I tried to get some work there, and I did a few things, but nothing serious. So then I just started working in a medical office, and I didn't like that very much, but I had to pay my bills. And then I started working at a university, and again, an office work, and I didn't like it much. And then when I moved back to Texas, I decided I'd get my teaching certificate, because I'd always secretly wanted to be a teacher, but I'd gotten so heavy into radio and TV that I just kind of forgot about that. But then when I discovered that radio and TV is not going to work out for me, then I said I'd like to go into teaching. Well, in radio, you just have what we call a time slot. So I did like the 10 to 2 time slot. So I had the midday show. So that's what I would do. Of course, when you first start out in radio, you don't get the big shows. You just work on the weekend, and you do like maybe a 6-hour shift. And in television, I worked at a television station in Odessa, and it was the NBC affiliate. And like I said, I started out on the teleprompter and then worked my way up to camera. And then after camera, you could do a little bit of directing. So there was a show they had on the weekend. It was sort of just a little show. It had only 3 cameras. It had 3 cameras and like 2 mics, and I would do the directing for that. Just, flipping the switch for the shots. And I would also do be the sound engineer. And that just means, turning the mics off and on during a news broadcast. But I mainly worked during the news broadcasting. And a friend of mine, she was into acting. And I remember there was a TV show at the time, and it was called America's Most Wanted. And I helped them out with that, just doing like being an assistant type things. And I did a lot of voiceover work. And recently I've worked with a local company. They're in Jordan now, but it's Nor Art, and I did some character acting, but voiceovers for them. So I've always kind of kept up a lot of voiceover work, just doing commercials and things like that. I work at IQA, which is an acronym within an acronym. It's, the Islamic Association of North Texas Quranic Academy. And when I first converted to Islam, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be awesome if I could be a teacher at a Muslim school? So, alhamdulillah, I'm living my dream. And I teach kindergarten. And some people think kindergarten, this is just babysitting and little things. But actually, here in the United States in kindergarten, it's very academic. And this is where they learn how to read. So I feel like it's a privilege and an honor to teach these young children that I taught them how to read, which is one of the most important skills they'll ever learn in their life. So that's why I enjoy it so much, and I take it very seriously. Well, what I knew about Islam before I became Muslim was not much. I just noticed, like, I would see some women walking around, and, you know, honestly, I thought they looked very ugly with the scarf, and, you know, and I didn't understand. I was very ignorant, and that's about all I knew. And also, because I grew up in the 70s, we heard the big stories were the kidnappings in Iran, you know, and that was kind of my introduction to Islam. Is maybe, I don't want to say a violent religion, but just, you know, scary. This was like a scary religion. And just like I said, the women look ugly with their hijabs on and things like that, now that I'm wearing one. So that was my own observation. But then I got to know some Muslims. And I learned about the religion through them. And that's when I got interested, because they would tell me things, and it made a lot of sense that which Christianity didn't. Yeah, Christianity has a lot of gray areas, and they talk about the Trinity and that Jesus is God, and that never worked in my mind. But then when in Islam I learned that there's only one God and that you can talk to him directly. You don't have to go through anybody. You know, you don't have to have a priest or the Pope or Jesus or anything like that, you know. But I also like the fact that they still respected Jesus as a prophet. So I just found really through these other Muslims that I really liked this religion and I was interested, but I wasn't ready to get into it yet. You know, that was a big change and a big lifestyle change, you know, because in America, we have a society of anything goes. You can do anything. And Islam, for someone who's not Muslim, it's very restrictive. You can't do this, you can't do that. You have to do this, you have to do this, you have to pray at this time of day. And when you grew up thinking anything goes, you can do whatever you want, as long as you're not killing somebody, it's okay. So for me, that would be a big change. And what would my family think, or what would my friends think? I'm a weirdo. What have I done? Things like that. But I did like the idea of Islam, and I did like the Muslims that I met. I thought they were nice people, and they seemed to have something really good, their lifestyle. So, and then I got married, and I married a Muslim man, and he didn't push me or anything, but he was like, you know, if we have children, they're going to grow up to be Muslim. And I said, yeah, I'm fine with that, because I don't have a religion. I'm not religious. I don't want to be Baptist, that's for sure. And I like Islam. Who knows, maybe one day I'll convert. I don't know. And then I started going to a halakha class with this lady, and she would teach converts about Islam. And I hadn't converted yet, but anybody was welcome to come. And one of my big fears growing up was dying. I had an extreme fear of death. I even spent, like in my early 20s, an entire year in a serious depression, because in the United States, we call it facing your mortality, meaning you realize you will die one day. And then what's going to happen to you? And I didn't know. And to me, that was scary. I thought, I'm just going to go into oblivion. I will cease to exist. And this is terrifying thought. If you don't have anything, it's very terrifying. And so one day, I was talking with this lady, and she was teaching the class, and she told a story about Allah I'm just going to put it in my own words. I don't know where it comes from or anything, but Allah was giving jobs out to the angels. You know, so the angel of death, he says, you're going to be the angel of death. And he's like, I don't want to be the angel of death. You know, everybody's going to hate me. You know, I'm the guy that comes and takes people's lives. So, and God said, don't worry. It'll be okay. And he's like, no, I don't want to do it. And he said, no, it's okay, because I will give them reasons. And I don't know why, but that was such a moment that was so clear in my mind that, you know, it's only a reason. When you die, you say, oh, he died. But God gives us a reason. Well, he died of this, he died of that. But then after death, there is something. And that became so clear in my mind, and my heart got like such a relief. And I thought, you know, yes, I want to convert, because I want to believe like that. I want to be part of Islam. And now there's something, because going through life, living anything goes and doing things that in your heart aren't right. You don't know why they're not right, but there's, in Islam we talk about taqwa, and that connection. And even if you don't have religion, a lot of people know in their hearts that's not right what you're doing, But to finally make that connection with God and know that there is something after and that there is someone out there or something that loves and cares about you, that was such a relief in my heart. And that's when I decided, yes, I'm going to convert to Islam. And that's what I did. Right. I converted to Islam, and we need to ask Suzanne Hito. It's Bridge. I can't think of it. It's a city in Chicago. It has the largest Muslim population. What is it? Cicero. In Cicero, there's a huge mosque there. And the brother there, or the imam there, I converted with him. And he was the gentleman that married my husband and I. Because I got married in the mosque, even though I wasn't Muslim. But I agreed I'll get married in the mosque, no problem. And then, subhanAllah, like about a year and a half later, I went back to him and I took my shahada. But that was in Chicago. I'm just trying to think. I want to say Bridgeport, but I know it's not Bridgeport. But it's a city near Cicero. It's very well known. Well, I felt really scared and unsure of myself, And I think primarily I was afraid of doing something wrong, because everybody's looking at you. What is she doing? Is your hair showing? Like my hair's probably showing right now. Is your hair showing? Are you wearing the right clothes? What are you doing? Even to say the words, salam alaikum, it's like, am I saying it right? And it feels very strange coming from your mouth, and then, oh no, you're supposed to say Bismillah. No, you're supposed to say Alhamdulillah. No, when you see something, you say MashaAllah. No, when you see something else, you say Subhanallah. And it's all these rules, and it's scary. And I'm a perfectionist in a way, and I don't want to mess up. That's my main thing. So it was a scary period. I also was afraid of what my family might think and my friends, and I tried to ease them into it. Before I converted, I said, I'm thinking about converting to Islam. I've married this man and I really like the religion. So I put the idea in their head. I didn't just show up one day and say, I'm Muslim and you have to accept it. So I tried to ease them into it, but I still feared, like, well, what are they going to think? And I also really was afraid of losing myself, of losing Paige, because the way Paige used to be can't be Paige, Muslim Paige, That can't happen anymore. So I was like, well, who will I be as a Muslim? So there was a very long period of time, like maybe like 7 to plus years of trying to figure out who I was, as a Muslim, and trying learning everything and kind of accepting a new identity, even though this process would have happened anyway, because we're all growing older and we become, better and different people as we go along. But to completely change and leave everything behind that you grew up with and accept something new and try to make new things and new traditions. It was a scary period. I don't know. My parents were like, oh, Paige, because I was always like strong-headed. Everybody in my family has black hair and dark eyes, but I have blonde hair but I have the dark eyes. I didn't get the blue eyes. So they always said Paige is the blonde sheep of the family. We have a saying, black sheep of the family. This means the one who's different. So I was always known as different. Oh, Paige, she's going to go and do that. Okay. But my parents were nice about it. And I'm glad, because I think in their own mind, they knew they don't really have a right to say anything because they didn't raise me in the church. So whose fault is it? It's really nobody's fault, but to look at it in this manner, But I did have some cousins who were didn't like it, calling it a traitor, which I don't like, and that hurts my feelings, but okay. And then I had some friends what makes you leave everything leave all your traditions to go and do this, And then some people are some people are very nice. They don't care. I still have friends from my childhood and they know I'm Muslim and they don't care. They're okay with it. It's not a problem. And then there's some people, they don't want to have anything to do with you anymore. And that's okay too, you know? Well, I have to say, when you first convert to Islam, there's what's called a honeymoon period. You know, when people first get married and they're in love with each other and everything's perfect and everything's so wonderful. And it's the same with converts, you know. All Muslims are such great people and Islam is so wonderful. And then you get hit with reality and you see somebody who was born Muslim, but they're not doing what they're supposed to do, you know. And you're like, and you get a little taken aback. But then you have to remind yourself, you know, there's plenty of Christians walking on this earth who are good Christians, good people. And then there's bad Christians, you know. But yes, my view of Muslims, of course, changed, you know, but I still have some other issues too, because again, some Muslims are nice to you and they want to help you. And then there's some Muslims that are very judgmental of converts, you know, like, don't you come into the mosque with, you know, your wrist showing, how dare you come in here? You know, or you're chewing gum, get out of here. Or they're not very nice to you. I don't know, I guess they think they're helping you, but really they're not. But as you grow into it, if you stay in it long enough, you learn that, you know, it's just like anything else. There's good people and there's bad people. But yes, I definitely have a much more positive attitude about Muslims. And I know that, you know, the bad things that are going on in the world and the Islamophobia that we experience here in the U.S. is just because of a few bad people who have sort of, in a way, hijacked our religion and are using Islam to defend their, you know, violent actions. But I know that the majority of Muslims are peaceful people and really good people and the best people that you can meet on the face of the earth. So yes, my opinion for sure changed. What impressed me the most? Again, was that direct connection with God. I don't have to go through anybody. You know, I don't have to go and pray to Jesus to talk to God for me and make things okay. I don't have to go to a priest to pray to God for me to help me in whatever I've done. You know, I can ask God directly. You know, and honestly, when I was in college, and part of my process of searching for something, I studied a lot of philosophy. And our philosophy teacher taught us once that these are the concepts of God, you know. But he said, really, if what God is and should be is omniscient, meaning he knows all, he is all. He doesn't have any associators or any helpers. And so that's the concept that stuck with me. Even before knowing about Islam, it's like, yes, God is one, that's it. There's nothing else. And that's the most important part to me, is that there's only one God and he's the only one worthy to be worshiped. And again, that whole story I told you about, there's only reasons to death, but it's not the final. Well, I mean, the problems we have here in the United States for converts is that there's really no support, hardly at all. I mean, no support in that there's a community effort to help converts. You can have good support if you have friends, if you have if you're a woman and you have a supportive husband. But Imam Ivaki, you know, stated a long time ago that over 70% of people that convert to Islam end up leaving Islam because there's not enough support. And why isn't there enough support? Because there's no one to teach you. And there's no one to befriend you, because a lot of converts lose their whole families. Their families disown them. Their friends disown them. So now you have nobody. So who are you going to go to? And there's no community there to help you. There's no community with their hands open saying, that's okay, come here, we'll teach you the religion. And during the holidays, we'll, you know, show you what we do and we'll take you to our house and you can become part of our family. In a way, this is a main problem for converts here in the U.S. You know, Islam as a whole here in the U.S., well, there's a lot of bashing going on just for political gain, in my opinion. You know, in the United States, we've always had a bad guy. You know, in the 1800s, there was the Italians. They were the bad guys. There was the Irish. You know, the Irish people, they used to have a law where if you were Irish, you couldn't marry anybody else. You could only marry another Irish person. The only other type of person that you could marry was an American Indian. That's why you get a lot of mixing with the American Indian people here, especially here in Texas, because there weren't a lot of women out here. But anyway, and then there was the Germans. The Germans are the bad guys, and then there was the Japanese. The Japanese are the bad guys, and then after that it was Russia. We had a Cold War with Russia forever, and after Russia, now it's Islam is the bad guy, in my opinion. So we've always had to have a bad guy. So now Islam is the bad guy. And anytime there's ever something that's gone on or an attack and it's associated with a Muslim, it's like, look out. That's all Muslims. And that's what we face here. It's just what we call Islamophobia. People are really afraid of Muslims because they're portrayed in the media as violent and scary people. Well, I always tell, I taught at a Sunday school for Muslim kids. So they go to public school so they don't learn about their religion. And I taught 7th grade boys. And the boys, they're 13 and 14. And I told them, I said, the number one reason why people convert to Islam is because of you. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, how do you act as a Muslim? Most people convert to Islam because of another Muslim. I said, so it's really your role here is to convey a positive image about Islam and yourself. People will change their minds one-on-one. To do a big campaign, it doesn't have as much effect as if I talk to you face to face and you learn about me and I learn about you. This is, to me, the best way to spread Islam or convey Islam in a more positive way here in the United States. It's just one-on-one communication. That's the best way. Right. Or you reach out to your neighbor and they get to know, no, I have Muslim neighbors and they're very nice people. I don't know what you're talking about. They're good people. They always check on me. They're nice. They bring me food. That's how you spread Islam, and that's how you change people's opinion about Islam, is through how you live. And I think even in the Prophet's time, peace be upon him, that's how people converted. They saw how he acted and they said, okay, I'm going to be a Muslim. I want to be like that too. Well, look at Indonesia, the biggest Muslim country in the world. How did it get there? For some people, some immigrants, they learned from other Muslims. It was one-on-one. Fasting when I first converted, it was easy because I lived in Chicago. And at the time, we broke the fast in, I forgot, it was like in early spring. And we broke the fast at 4:30 in the afternoon. And I was like, oh, this is easy, no problem. But then as the years went on, and then we moved to Texas, the days get longer. And now it's in the summer, and you're fasting for like 16 hours, and it's like, whoa. But you're right, you have to put your mind to it. And once you put your mind to it, and you have to grow into it as well. Some Muslims, when they first convert, they cannot fast. They will try, but it's very, very hard for them. And also another problem is that other born Muslims will become very critical of them if you're vocal about it. Like I told you, fasting's hard. You're like, no, fasting's hard. And then I'm like, well, why is it easy for him, but it's hard for me? Is there something wrong with me? So I think, you have to grow into these things. Some people can do it straight away, no problem. But I think people have to be forgiving of themselves and easy on themselves and train themselves into it, But that's a really hard thing because, like in the U.S., we have so much food. Many of us are overweight and we love our food. And to go without food for so long, and water. I think people are okay with food. It's just the drink. If I could just drink, I'd be okay. But you have to get used to it. If you're not born Muslim and you're an adult and then boom, you start fasting, it can be difficult. But that's why, like we train our children, you can fast from, breakfast to lunch. Oh, you can, and then they get older and then you start training them because they become used to this. It becomes something normal in their life, but somebody, if you've never fasted before, it can be hard. That's another issue with converts. I've heard some women say, I don't feel it. And this just means I'm not feeling this connection with God when I pray because it's not in your language. And it can, if you don't really understand what prayer is for, it can be difficult if you're when you're a current convert, because when you pray in the Christian church, it's a very emotional thing. But prayer in the Christian church is more like what I would say when we make dua. When you're asking God for something, that's more like the prayer in the Protestant church anyway. And so sometimes it just seems like it's a ritual, so you really have to keep your mind in it. But I think a lot of born Muslims have this problem too. You're praying and all of a sudden you start thinking, oh, what am I going to get at the grocery store? Yeah, I got to get that paper. That's due. Oh, my job. I need to get gas. Your mind starts wandering off. So you really have to focus, and also you also have to know what every part of the prayer means. You can learn it in Arabic and you can recite it in Arabic, but if you don't know why you say that for that reason, there's the part that, before you say the Shahada, you've already prostrated, you're on your knees, and the part where you say the Shahada, before that, that's supposed to be when the Prophet, peace be upon him, ascended to heaven, and he met up with the angel. And, if you don't know that part of the story, it may not mean anything to you. So it's very important that you learn all the background so you know, why am I saying this? For what reason? So it does become meaningful for you and you can feel it, as we say.
What you said, you mean this?
Right. And you have to really know, why do we prostrate? Why do I bend on my knees? Why do I do that? You have to know each part of the prayer, and then you have to really focus on it. You have to stay in it. You can't just, like I said, if you don't focus, your mind starts wandering, going away. And I bet that happens to anybody, not just converts. I'm sure that's happened to you. Right. Well, it's like fasting. You have to put your mind into it. Okay, now I'm going to pray, and I have to envision that I am standing before Allah. I am standing before Allah as his humble servant. And I'm going to do this ritual that I was told to do. And I know what this ritual is for. And I know each part and why it was revealed and why we are told to do this. And you have to try very hard to focus on it. It may not every time be a life-altering experience. And I think that's maybe what some converts are looking for, is to have some, big moment when you feel God and you start crying and you feel all this emotion. You feel very humble before God. That doesn't always happen, but that's okay. You still need to pray as much, you still need to do the 5 daily prayers. I was telling you, I read that book 1453 and about the history of Muhammad the Conqueror. And I found it very fascinating. I've always wanted to visit Turkey since then. And inshallah, one day, it seems like what I think about Turkey? I'll tell you this. This thought just came to my mind. I think Turkey is like the ancient United States in a way. Why? Because Turkey, in the ancient times, people from all over came to Turkey. You look at Turkish faces, they're all different people. I have a friend, her name's Fatima. She has blonde hair and blue eyes, a beautiful woman. And I wouldn't think she was Turkish. And then I've met other Turkish people, black hair, black eyes. They look Eastern European to me, or they look Greek. So Turkey, in the old ancient times, this was a meeting place of all different civilizations. So when I was reading the history of Turkey, I thought that was so interesting, because in a way, that's the way the United States is now. The United States is the same way. We have cultures from all over the place, all meeting together in one place. So inshallah, one day I could visit Turkey and the wonderful, beautiful people there, inshallah.
Say something.
Oh, I would say Ramadan Mubarak to the beautiful people of Turkey. May Allah bless you in this special time and make it easy on you and for all of us, inshallah.